see. Maybe the best is yet to come. All right. So let's actually get started with the breaking news, and it has to do with Donald Trump's press conference. So Donald Trump held his first press. What is up, everyone? Welcome to TYT. I'm Anna Kasparian. Joining us on this beautiful Friday is Benjamin Dixon. What's up,
Hi.
Ben?
Hey, Anna, how are you? Always a pleasure to be here.
It's always a pleasure to have you, and it's always, it's always a good day when you have positive stories in the rundown, and there are some positive stories. Of course, we have some insanity, lunacy coming from Donald Trump. He held his first press conference today, and we're going to give you the details on what he had to say. Did he address the outcome of the election? You want to stick around to find out, right? But it's Friday, and I'm super excited about it. Like, I'm excited that it's going to be the weekend, and I have to work a little bit on Saturday, but after that, I'm going to do nothing, just lay around, be a slob.
Living for the weekend.
Just be lazy. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I mean, it's crazy because I don't know if you had this same, I guess, prediction, and it was an inaccurate prediction on my part at least. Like, as soon as the election is called, like, you can just kind of like relax a little bit. The workload might lessen, but no, that didn't happen. No. Things have gotten crazier.
No, it has gotten more intense, and I'm wondering how far this can go. There has to be a limit to this at some point.
I know. Well, we'll see. Maybe the best is yet to come. All right. So let's actually get started with the breaking news, and it has to do with Donald Trump's press conference. So Donald Trump held his first press conference after losing to Joe Biden in the general election. Now, did he use it as an opportunity to finally concede? Of course not. But he did use it as an opportunity to go after his political enemies, whine about Pfizer and their news regarding a vaccine. It was absolute nonsense. But one thing that was very clear is that Donald Trump certainly hates Cuomo from New York, the governor of New York, of course, and likes to, in any way he can, retaliate against his political opponents. So in this next clip, you're gonna hear what he has to say about Pfizer's upcoming coronavirus vaccine and how Trump plans to distribute it. Watch.
As soon as April, the vaccine will be available to the entire general population, with the exception of places like New York State, where, for political reasons, the governor decided to say, and I don't think it's good politically, I think it's very bad from a health standpoint, but he wants to take his time on the vaccine. He doesn't trust where the vaccine's coming from. These are coming from the greatest companies anywhere in the world, greatest labs in the world.
So he went on to basically threaten New York by refusing to distribute the vaccine to that state. Now, of course, the important word there was April, which means he won't be president, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what he has to say on that stage. But Ben, I wanted to get your thoughts.
If you could, maybe you could help me. Is he saying that New York isn't getting it because they're refusing it, or they're not getting it because he doesn't like them politically? Because I wasn't sure on that point.
So I think what he was trying to do there was basically accuse Governor Cuomo of spreading fear and disinformation about the vaccine. And as a result, the federal government will not distribute the vaccine to that state. Now, the fact of the matter is Donald Trump politicized every single component of this pandemic. And people, I think understandably, were suspicious about the development of a vaccine because, as we know, Trump was trying to speed it up, get it through.
Warp speed.
And warp speed, exactly. And regardless of whether someone's a Democrat or Republican, Obviously, when it comes to vaccinations, you want to make sure it goes through the proper, protocol, the proper testing, the proper trials before you take it yourself. And so it's really Trump's fault that his own rhetoric led to widespread distrust toward vaccines or other methods of keeping people safe.
And as you can see, it's like I really just had to pause and ask if I'm hearing this correctly, because what seems like common sense to him is anathema to us. Like, this can't be really what the president of the United States is saying, that because of pettiness, political pettiness, he's willing to risk or at least threaten, right? He won't be here in April, like you said. So really, he won't have any impact on that at all. But he's the president of the United States making this type of threat to alienate an entire state that he's supposed to be the president of.
And also, he said places like New York, right? So I think it's very clear that he's trying to make a statement there regarding states that haven't been friendly to him. I wonder if Arizona and Georgia, 2 states that flipped from red to blue, make it on that list. But anyway, he wasn't the only one who decided to go after Governor Cuomo during this press conference. So let's take a listen to what Alex Azar had to say.
Thank you, Mr. President, for providing the leadership that's gotten us where we are today. The success that Operation Warp Speed has realized so far has been made possible only because of the bold vision you announced not even 6 months ago, right here in the Rose Garden. As I worked with the president to assemble this team and organize this effort, his support was indispensable at each step of the way. We went out and found the very best people on the planet to do the job. This process has been driven solely by science and data. So it's a shame that some, one example being the governor of New York, have actually injected politics into the process and suggested the possibility of intentionally delaying access to an FDA-authorized vaccine, which is simply unconscionable. Thank you, Mr. President, for making that very bright future possible for the American people.
If you look at polling regarding Americans' trust in a vaccine, you'll see over and over again that people are skeptical, they're worried. And it's not because of what Governor Cuomo had to say about it. It's because of Donald Trump's own rhetoric. And again, like, I don't really get why this press conference was utilized as an avenue to attack Governor Cuomo. The people who politicize this pandemic from the start are members of the Trump administration and Trump himself.
Yeah, you notice he has nothing to say unless he's attacking someone. That's why he had to center Cuomo on this. And the thing that really you should have just focused on the science. If the science stands up by itself, then you wouldn't have to create a villain. So that makes me even more nervous. It's like, have these people not seen any zombie movies where it wasn't because of some supernatural thing? It was like a virus, a pathogen that went wrong, and we try to treat it. That's why most of us don't trust it. We've seen this too many times in horror movies.
Right. I mean, Trump's lack of leadership, incompetence, the fact that he discouraged people from wearing masks. He told the Wall Street Journal that he thinks people wear masks to make him look bad, which means that he would prefer people to not wear masks to make him look good, even though it puts their own health at risk by doing that. And also, I mean, if we had done nothing in response to coronavirus, the numbers would be similar to what we're experiencing today. And to be clear, Trump had completely abandoned any type of action toward this pandemic months ago. But after he lost the election, he was pretty much MIA until he held this press conference today. I want to tell you how serious this pandemic has gotten. How serious the numbers have gotten because of Donald Trump's lack of leadership and incompetence. Over the past week, the United States coronavirus outbreak has worsened, with the nation reporting more than 150,000 new infections yesterday, according to data compiled by Johns Hopkins University. The 7-day average of daily new cases stands at 131,445. That's 32% higher than a week ago. So the country is in a lot of trouble as a result of how this administration has handled the pandemic. And anyone who's critical about their handling of the pandemic is right. And the fact that he's used this press conference to go after Governor Cuomo for criticizing Trump, I think is just absolutely ridiculous. It shows you the kind of person he is. But the good news is Donald Trump will not be in charge in April. The federal government has purchased the many doses of the vaccine. They're going to be in charge of distributing it. And so it's important to know that the first in line to take the vaccine, of course, are going to be people who are the most vulnerable to the virus. So elderly people, individuals who have other pre-existing health conditions that put them at greater risk if they contract the virus. Children are last in line. So it's going to really be put out by a needs basis, and I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, and actually that works out for me because my kids, if they're going to go last, then we have to sit back and watch how everyone else reacts to it. So if we have an I am legend moment with Will Smith, at least me and my kids and all of us who are not in those politicians are going to get it first. I hate to think of vulnerable communities getting it first. I want to see these politicians get it, and just in case it goes south.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, okay, here's some more good news about the Pfizer vaccine. The pharmaceutical company was not part of Operation Warp Speed. And that honestly puts my mind at ease. Yeah. And so it is actually going through the necessary clinical trials. And so that's good news. Don't let Donald Trump's political messaging, sway you in the wrong direction. Obviously, read up on the vaccine. We'll do more reporting on it as we learn more. But so far, from what I'm seeing, they are going through the appropriate testing to ensure that it's approved and safe for widespread use. So, all right. With that said, let's get back to the outcome of the election because more ballots have been counted, and it looks like Trump has lost 2 more states. So. President-elect Joe Biden has won the state of Georgia and also flipped Arizona. Now, Georgia and Arizona have been red states for decades. However, they decided to vote for Biden in this general election. He's the first Democrat to flip the states from red to blue in decades. CNBC reports that Biden's victory, the first for a Democratic presidential contender in Georgia since 1992, further secures a big lead in the Electoral College over President Donald Trump. Biden's victory would give him 16 more Electoral College votes and further solidify an already large lead over Donald Trump in both the Electoral College and popular vote tallies. So what's the number? Well, Biden has secured 306 Electoral College votes compared with 232 such votes for Trump under current projections. And I'm just gonna go to the very last graphic in this segment just to make a point about the hypocritical messaging from Trump loyalists. Kellyanne Conway back in 2016 had a reaction to 306 electoral votes that Donald Trump secured. She said 306, landslide, blowout, historic. I've yet to see a similar tweet regarding Joe Biden and this election.
They have a wonderful way of only caring about something when it benefits them and completely disregarding when it doesn't benefit them. So of course, that's the programming of Republicans. They will never call what Donald Trump just suffered a blowout, but in every way measurable that they consider, it was a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of incredible to see these states flip from red to blue. I mean, I don't think that that's indicative of how these states are going to vote in the future. So we shouldn't just pretend as though things are completely different in those states. They still have a pretty giant right-wing electorate there. Now, in Georgia, to make my point, Biden won by a very slim margin, about 14,000 votes. So as a result, the Secretary of State in Georgia has committed to do a recount. The recount will be done by hand, and we'll see what the results of that recount will be. But my guess is it will not change the results of the election in the state of Georgia. Also, Trump's efforts were dealt a serious blow when his campaign dropped a challenge of ballots in Arizona. Some good news. Saw a judge refuse to delay the certification of ballots in Detroit and learned that Pennsylvania will not order a recount of ballots. And so Trump's in a lot of trouble if he thinks that he can try to, flip the results of this election. His lawyers have abandoned him. He's dropping this lawsuit in Arizona. And even during his press conference today, he almost conceded. He did so in the context of the pandemic and whether or not the country is going to undergo more lockdowns. Let's watch.
Ideally, we won't go to a lockdown. I will not go. This administration will not be going to a lockdown. Hopefully, the whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be. I guess time will tell. But I can tell you, this administration will not go to a lockdown. There won't be necessity. Lockdowns cost lives, and they cost a lot of problems.
He knows.
We heard it. We heard it. And it's moments like that makes me really pause and say, like, okay, Donald Trump is not the complete moron that we think he is. He knew how to pivot fast enough to not make that confession to the entire international community that he knows that this is over. So he's really smart at being shrewd and really smart at distorting and really in telling lies. That's his master. That's what he masters in.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that he sees challenging the outcome of the election as an opportunity to raise money at this point.
Yeah.
And what's really pathetic is that this grift essentially, like he's a swindler. Like he's swindling his own supporters through all of these emails asking for money to challenge the results of the election in various states. And people are donating money thinking that he's actually going to use it for these court battles, when in reality, if you read the fine print, the majority of that money actually goes toward legal settlements he might have to deal with, campaign debt, his own political action committee, which he could use for future, political aspirations. There's a lot of talk of him running again in 2024. But it's amazing how much he takes advantage of people who support him, how much he likes to bamboozle them, and how they go for it every single time.
And that last part, Anna, is the thing. Like, how do they not see what is so obvious to us? It's actually written in the fine print there if they actually paid attention to it. But it's so much more important for them to feel the sensation that they are fighting back to own the libs. And Donald Trump has monetized that.
Absolutely, exactly. So I do see this as a grift, and I do think that it does have actual consequences. I don't think he's actually going to attempt to stage a coup, but at this point, what he is doing is fueling potential violence and civil unrest in the country. And I should also note that all of these like phony legal battles that he's engaging in, we pay for that. I mean, taxpayer money goes to, our resources go toward these ridiculous, frivolous lawsuits. And so there is a price to pay. There is a cost to that. But, I think that he's pretty clear on what the outcome of the election is. I think he's already accepted it in his head. He's kind of given up on himself. He stopped dyeing his hair. He's very depressed. I assume that video, man, he's hanging in there, I guess.
People were really thinking that he didn't age the normal amount that presidents age, right? Those first 4 years always adds at least 12 years in president years. And he was dyeing his hair and he was tanning his face with whatever spray tan he uses. And everyone thought, oh, he didn't really age. But here we are. There he is with his crystal clear white hair for America to see.
Yeah. It's quite a sight to see. All right, well, why don't we take our first break? And when we come back, we have more news on the coronavirus and more. Stick around, you don't want to miss it. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
We get animated about the news. Yes, we're not the robots on TV. I actually care about the news. Guilty, I care.
Senator Sanders, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to ask you a policy question.
How dare you? That's the problem. You're the problem. Don't ever attack the Republicans. Where the is the liberal media? No. These are all establishment guys. They love the system as it is. They're all enormously rich off the system that exists.
For us, this system isn't working.
So what this campaign is about is trying to create an economy that works not only for the people on top, but works for all Americans.
We're going to rock the boat. We're going to be counter-establishment. We're going to tell people the truth to the best of our abilities, and we're going to keep it real with them.
It's winter, and it's cold this time of year, isn't it? Well, it might feel chilly, and the wind might bite at your nose. Maybe you want to snuggle up with a hot chocolate, or wrap up warm and wear your biggest coat. But in the grand scheme of things, our earth is too hot, and it's getting even hotter. Our seasons are getting confused. Lots of birds are nesting earlier, and spring flowers are coming out too soon. This is what climate change looks like. It's affecting so many of the things we love, both here in our own backyards and around the world. But we have hope, because we know that together we can protect them if we act now and everyone does their bit. So this Christmas, give a gift of love and show the world you care.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for that to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're going to do both. We're going to fight Trump and we're going to fight the establishment. It's not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com.
Hey everyone, welcome back to TYT. Anna and Ben with you. I'm going to read a few TYT lives. So Zappa fan had a really good point, and I apologize. One clarification I need to make. So the first people who have access to the vaccine, of course, are going to be first responders and healthcare workers. I apologize for that mistake. I said vulnerable people like elderly and people who have pre-existing conditions would get it first. They would get it second, but healthcare workers understandably would get it first since they're on the front lines. And Steve Matrice says the Pfizer vaccine is nowhere near FDA approval. It's getting EUA emergency use authorization like hydroxychloroquine before we learned that it was increasing mortality. True, but in terms of being widely available to the general public, it is going through the necessary test, which is why we're not likely to have access to it until April. But if that changes, I'll let you know. And if you have more information that you want me to know about, please let me know. Okay, with that said, let me mention that you have the opportunity to plant trees, and it's super easy to do it. All you need to do to find out more about this is go to tyt.com/trees. Plant your trees or plant your change will automatically round up every purchase you make on any card you have to the nearest dollar and plant a tree with your spare change. Also, some happy news today. Kelly from Texas, who's a huge supporter of the show and has really helped with our fundraising efforts, is celebrating her birthday today. So thank you, Kelly, for all of your support. We absolutely love and appreciate you and couldn't imagine being able to do what we do without you. So happy birthday to Kelly. Kelly from Texas. All right, and then a few other messages. So from our members comment, LMG15 says, Anna, Ben, and positive stories in the rundown. We haven't really gotten to them yet, but there are some. Great way to end the week. Mondo Libre says Trump is so done and he knows it. Reeking of desperation, I pity the fool. Rainbow Bright says, I'm not taking this vaccine until all of Congress takes it, and even then I'll be skeptical. Understood. And I get it. I totally get it. So we'll see how it all plays out, but hopefully it's a good vaccine, because this country clearly has no interest in shutting things down to keep people safe. Trump obviously doesn't want to do it, and Biden has pretty much made clear that he would like to avoid it. So we'll see how it all plays out. Well, speaking of coronavirus, there are many members of the Secret Service who are now dealing with it. More than 130 Secret Service officers have been infected with coronavirus or have to quarantine in the wake of Donald Trump's campaign travel. So this report is pretty devastating, because that accounts for a pretty significant portion of the Secret Service officers. The spread of the coronavirus, which has sidelined roughly 10% of the agency's core security team, is believed to be partly linked to a series of campaign rallies that Trump held in the weeks before the November 3rd election. And as we know, he insisted on holding in-person campaign events. And in the last few days, the last 2 days of his campaigning, he made 5 different stops. He made 1 stop in North Carolina, 1 stop in Pennsylvania, 2 stops in Michigan, and 1 stop in Wisconsin. So, we've seen videos of the events where people are in close proximity to one another. They're not wearing masks. And so at this point, it's pretty unsurprising that those events have led to the spread of the virus among Secret Service officers. Now, one thing that actually has been getting my attention, Ben, is how Jake Tapper has been covering coronavirus. He's gotten saltier and saltier toward Donald Trump, and it's really fascinating to see it. Why don't we watch the next video?
How is it not a dereliction of duty? The president, this is going on right now. It's getting worse. It was all predicted. Everybody's been sounding the alarm. President Trump has not announced any sort of revamping of testing, revamping of steps needed to be taken, contact tracing. What should he be doing right now?
Well, there is, I'll be honest, if it were me, and I'm probably glad that nobody thinks it should be me, but I would hand this over to the coronavirus task force and the CDC and say, get to work. Do daily briefings, let the American people know what's happening, create a national strategy. Nobody likes to hear the term lockdown, but there are some places that are spiraling out of control right now.
So that's just a little taste of how Jake Tapper has been covering coronavirus lately. And I definitely understand his frustration. I've been feeling it. But usually CNN tries to be a little milquetoast in the way they cover things. So I love watching him realize just how incompetent Trump really is.
Yeah, CNN has gotten to the place where they're like, we're going to call Donald Trump what he is in those segments. When listening to them saying about how we may be forced into a lockdown because some places are spiraling, that's like the entirety of the United States is spiraling out of control. It's because we made literally no effort to do anything about it beyond the initial quasi lockdown. But Donald Trump has this recklessness about him, and if we want to understand how he is being reckless with America, look at how reckless he's being with his own life. Right now, he probably has a Secret Service detail of people who are still nervous, because all of his people who would cover him and they have the confidence and the skill set, those people at the top of the line, they're probably sick with COVID-19. Donald Trump is putting his own life at risk because of his ignorance. So if he's going to destroy himself, what do you think he'll do to this country?
Right. He failed to keep himself safe from the virus. He failed to keep his family safe from the virus. He failed to keep members of his administration safe from the virus. In fact, more than a dozen White House aides have tested positive for the virus just in the past week, including a range of low-level assistants and secretaries, officials said. Offices that have been affected include political affairs, legislative affairs, and communications. Let's name some specific names here. Among those who are infected are White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and outside political advisors Corey Lewandowski and David Bossie. He just doesn't take it seriously. And I really want to emphasize that clearly Donald Trump and the people who work for him have access to healthcare that ordinary Americans do not have. One of the reasons why it was so important to flatten the curve in the early days of the pandemic was that our healthcare system is easily overwhelmed by an influx of patients. And so you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to get the care that you need to survive if you contract the virus. But unfortunately, many parts of the country are experiencing that right now. And it's just absolutely devastating. You know, Trump might have access to all of these different experimental drugs, round the clock care. Average Americans don't get that. So it is a dangerous situation for them.
Wow, yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm just registering everything that you're saying. How many people have put themselves at risk of dying because they believe that they were equal to Donald Trump? But at the end of the day, no, you're not. You're going to catch COVID-19, and it may not work out as well for you, but you trusted it because how good it worked out for Donald Trump. But he has had everything at our human disposal ready for his care, not you. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then, one other thing I want to mention is, look, part of the problem with how the country has handled the pandemic is that in order to really control the virus and prevent it from spreading so rapidly, you do need shutdowns, at least until you have a virus. And this country's unwilling to do that. I'm sorry, what did I say?
You said virus, but I know we know.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. Vaccine. Yeah, the only thing you need, you need a vaccine, and until you have a vaccine, either you need to really encourage people to practice social distancing and wearing a mask. In this country, I feel like it's nearly impossible because people somehow think that's stomping on their liberties. But the reason why the government doesn't want to do it is because what's the best way to encourage people to stay home? Mm-hmm. Pay them to stay home.
Yes.
Right. I get the economic frustration that people have been feeling as a result of this pandemic. And we can't even get a third round of stimulus for people. It's insane. So we're going to just, I guess, keep dealing with it the way that we're dealing with it. Biden has said that he's going to consider a federal mandate on masks, but you already have governors from red states who say that they disagree with that, with that mandate. So
why are they so perfectly designed to destroy us? Like what they think is like liberty and freedom is literally what could destroy us. And COVID-19 is just one example of it. The greatest expression of oppression in their minds is having to wear a mask. But you could save some lives if you did.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But they just don't see it that way. The simple act of the government telling them, please wear a mask to stop the spread of this virus is just offensive to them. Yeah. But again, like one of the best things you can do as a leader in this country is ensure that people have the means to stay home without, finding themselves in complete economic turmoil. And other countries have done that. European countries were willing to pay up to 70% of people's wages if they stayed home. And we're just unable to do that. And I think there's a price to pay. We're seeing it right now in the number of people in hospitals, the number of confirmed cases on a daily basis, and the number of people who have already died as a result of this pandemic. Nearly 250,000 Americans. It's just absolutely shameful and pathetic. All right, well, let's move on to some other news. Donald Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, was on Fox Business, and he had some thoughts to share about how the Trump administration is planning for the transition. Let's watch.
My own view, looking at this election, we have what appears in some sense to be an immaculate deception. But if you look statistically at what happened, clearly the president won this election and was leading on election day. And then after election day, somehow in these key battleground states, they got just enough votes to catch up to the president. That's kind of what is being investigated. So I think what's important here is that this is a country of laws and rules. We have a very clear set of election laws. And what we need to do is go through the process as we did with Gore, Bush v. Gore, and see where we get. So until we do that, our assumption is the second Trump term. We think he won that election.
Our assumption is a second Trump term. Just today it was announced that Joe Biden won both Arizona and Georgia, meaning that he now has a total of 306 electoral votes. So things aren't working out the way that the Trump administration was hoping or was assuming it would work out. But yeah, I mean, Ben, thoughts on Peter Navarro's statements there?
So here's the thing, like, there's some of us think that a Trump coup is very possible, and others feel like, maybe not. But what troubles me isn't the ability for us to just have a peaceful transition and everything goes fine. That's what I'm hoping for. But they can't keep talking like this and expecting all of their supporters to just back down when they've collected these checks and they've gone off into the sunset of Mar-a-Lago. Their supporters are still going to be angry. So whether they plan on instituting a coup or not, they are preparing their followers. And if you've paid attention to their followers, some of these folks will carry out that violence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, but MAGA is planning a big rally in Washington, D.C. Yeah. And of course, it's being encouraged by Donald Trump and his goons. And members of the Proud Boys are already threatening to use violence. Unfortunately, there are counter protests planned. And I say unfortunately because I don't think it's a good idea. Donald Trump lost the election. Nothing's going to change that. So let the MAGA guys go out there and have their little rally, have their fun, embarrass themselves and move on with your lives. Like, don't engage with them. It's just not worth it. And I saw a video featuring General Mark Milley that actually put my mind at ease. I never thought I would use that statement, but I think it's important to show you guys what I'm talking about. So let's take a look at what he had to say this week.
We are unique among militaries. We do not take an oath to a king or a queen, a tyrant or a dictator. We do not take an oath to an individual. No, we do not take an oath to a country, a tribe, or a religion. We take an oath to the Constitution. And every soldier that is represented in this museum, every sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, each of us will protect and defend that document regardless of personal price.
I love that.
Yeah,
that was strong.
It was simultaneously intense but reassuring. Like he spoke with some authority. I was like, okay, I feel you, man. But what's reassuring is that they understand the score, right? He's not going to come out right directly and say he understands that there's a looming possibility of an attempted coup. But we didn't pledge our allegiance to Donald Trump. We did. We gave our oath to the Constitution. Now, the real question is when this comes down to theory versus practice. In theory, it's easy to say that we're going to protect the Constitution, not our commander in chief. But when he starts firing people as a result of you not obeying his instructions, the question is will you actually carry out that principle when the pressure is on?
Yeah, one thing that I haven't really seen detailed reporting on is how this could play out if Trump refuses to leave, right? Like what happens? I mean, it is unprecedented. What's the protocol? What's the planning for that? Already we're having issues with the transition because Donald Trump refuses to allow Joe Biden to get intel briefings, which is again one of the first things that starts to happen as soon as the general election is called. But how long is he going to play this game where he pretends like he doesn't accept the outcome of the election? How long is he going to do it? I think it's part of his grift. I think he's using this as a way of raising money for his legal fees and debts and all that stuff. But January 20th is going to be here before we know it, and I'm just curious what kind of planning is taking place to ensure that he's out of the White House. Like, bye, go away. And here's some more, I guess, good news regarding how people in his circle are handling the reality of this election. The editorial page of conservative mega donor Sheldon Adelson's Las Vegas Review Journal urged Trump to drop his conspiratorial rhetoric and begin cooperating with Biden's transition while the legal challenges play out. And some Republican senators are demanding that the White House extend intelligence briefings to Biden and his team. Now, they kind of speak from both sides of their mouths, right? Yes. Like they'll say the transition needs to start, allow Biden to get the briefings. But at the same time, they'll justify the legal battles that the Trump campaign is engaging in. But I don't see those legal battles lasting very long. The Trump campaign did just drop their lawsuit in Arizona. Some of Trump's lawyers representing his case against Pennsylvania have dropped him. So sure, go ahead with your legal battles if you want. But he hasn't really won any of them. It's just nothing's really working out for him. And again, I think he knows it. I think people in his administration know it. It's just pathetic to see all these people enabling him.
Yeah, because if they continue to enable him, the real question is like what happens when you have enabled him to the point where he actually tries this? Right. Instead of just condemning it outright from the beginning and never giving him an inch on this possible, even if it's a remote possibility, but there's a possibility of him destroying this country. You guys can't sit around talking out both sides of your neck. Condemn it and tell him to get out of office.
Yep. I totally agree. All right, well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we have more news for you, including some information on that rally that's going to take place in DC over the weekend. It could lead to some serious violence. I'm going to discourage you guys from being involved in it. So come back and we'll give you that story and more.
You know, old school's pitched to me from Jank. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? And I go, what are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong! I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not f***ing, Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Greg starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just going to ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join, and free trial. I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John,
man.
come back.
Electric cars are awesome, but they aren't the best tool for every job. You can't park them on the edge of the sidewalk while you run into the store for a few things. On top of that, an electric car is just financially out of reach for many people. That's where Zoom electric scooters come in. When I say electric scooter, I'm talking about small motorcycles with space in front of you to put your feet. The Zoom scooter has a range of 60 miles, offers a smooth ride up to 40 miles per hour, and can be charged from any electrical outlet. Start saving on gas while reducing your carbon footprint. To find out more, go to tyt.com/Zoom. Enter the code TYT50 to get an additional discount.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's going to be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
Our community faces a never-before-seen public health and economic crisis. Businesses are calling Levin Papantonio with their legal questions regarding COVID-19. You've asked and we've answered. If you're a business owner and have suffered financial loss or closure from COVID-19 and have questions regarding your insurance policy, call us for a free consultation. Some policies may provide coverage for lost profits and earnings. Stay safe, and together we'll get through this.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to TYT. Anna Kasparian and Benjamin Dixon with you. I'm going to read a few super chats and move on to the rest of the rundown. So we have Logan Hall, who wrote in and says, I watched Benjamin Dixon's live video this morning when the panel was talking about code switching depending on the audience, and now I'm super conscious of it. Ben, what is that?
It's just that, we speak a different language depending on the audience that we're in front of. And it's just code switching, like what I would say. I guess I'm wondering if he's conscious of the fact that I might be doing a little code switching here versus what I do.
No, don't do any code switching. Be you. That's why we bring you on. We love you.
No, I know, but I'm self-conscious of. I wonder if he thinks I'm code switching, because I'm really just being myself at all points. They're all authentically us.
I think the best example of code switching was how Tucker Carlson presented himself in his debate with Cenk at Politicon. Like all of a sudden he's like this friendly, agreeable, nice guy. And I'm like, I see right through it. I see right through it. Thomas Johnson gave a generous super chat. And I'm gonna go ahead and read your comment. You say Bernie would not have won any state Biden lost. Biden crushed him in the Florida primary. Okay, with Cubans and Venezuelans. People might get offended at me saying this, but I don't care. Stop trying to appeal to Cubans and Venezuelans in Florida. You're not, as a Democrat, it's not gonna happen. They think you're a socialist no matter how moderate you are. So let's stop trying to appeal to Cubans and Venezuelans. Cubans in Florida right now, and I know because I have family members who are Cuban, think that the election was stolen from Donald Trump. Like, you're not gonna get them, guys. Like, let's move on, okay? Let's wait for the younger generation of Cubans to grow up and be able to vote, because they're a little more, I guess, open-minded and reasonable with their political views. Yeah, I said it. The comment continues, I can see Bernie doing a lot better with Mexican Americans in Texas, true, than Biden, but can't see him holding the margins in southern suburbia. Dems need to win Texas, North Carolina, and Georgia. Yeah, I think Bernie might have had a better chance with Texas. Definitely not North Carolina, and maybe not even Georgia. I don't know.
I think it would have done just as good in Georgia, only because of what gave Joe Biden the competitive edge was an overwhelming group of young people, young progressives, 18 to 29, especially young black progressives, 18 to 29. So the group that actually put Joe Biden over the top is a group that I think would have came out energetically for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, it would be interesting to see it. What I do know is that Bernie has a message that resonates across the board, and it's a message of economic justice. And he actually had a message. Like, I'm glad Biden won over Trump, but Biden's message was decency. And to be quite honest with you, like, most people aren't interested in decency right now. They're interested in being able to provide for their families. But anyway, all right, well, let's talk a little bit about this rally over the weekend. Extremist Trump supporting groups are planning a march in DC over the weekend to protest the reality of the election. Donald Trump lost, Joe Biden won. Joe Biden has 306 electoral votes. It's over, put a fork in him, Trump's done. But anyway, they're gonna go ahead and have their collective temper tantrum in DC, and let me give you some details about it. The rallies, which include a Women for Trump event, a Million MAGA march, and a Stop the Steal demonstration, which of course falsely asserts that voter fraud cost Trump the election, will begin Saturday morning in and around Freedom Plaza. So this rally, It is being promoted by conservatives and Trump himself, and also all sorts of right-wing figures who have caused trouble in the past. So the pro-Trump rallies have garnered support from Fox News host Sean Hannity, as well as more fringe figures, including Enrique Tarrio, who's the chairman of the Proud Boys, self-described American nationalist and social media agitator Nicholas Fuentes, conservative provocateur Jack Posobiec, who promoted the Pizzagate conspiracy theory. Lots of classy people here, and then a bunch of other weirdos, including Alex Jones. I don't need to read the whole graphic. You guys get the picture. So I have more details on this, but Ben, do you have any worries about this rally over the weekend?
Just that there are a bunch of small little men who are going to try to prove that they're not small little men. So that actually gives us a real possibility of violence. Yeah, that's really my concern as well. I mean, the rally isn't going to change anything. The election results are what they are. Yeah. And maybe this is like their way of feeling better by getting together and moaning and whining about it. I don't know. But the thing that I am worried about, and if you happen to be one of the people who plan on showing up to counter protest, why? Don't? I mean, I'm a big fan of political action. I'm usually a huge supporter of protests. People's right to assemble. So it's not like I have like some sort of ideological issue with it. But my problem is it will lead to violence. The right absolutely loves and thrives on violence. So why show up? I mean, Biden won the election. It's pretty clear that Trump's not going to be able to steal it, right? And so how about stay home, take a load off, turn the TV on, have a beer and laugh at them. That's what I'm going to do. Enjoy yourselves. What? Anyway, but there are some planned protests. Let me give you some examples. Refuse Fascism said it'll hold a rally at Freedom Plaza 30 minutes before the Million MAGA March and hopes to block the pro-Trump rally from taking place. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Why? I think it's so unnecessary. Lucia Bright says, we're gathering nonviolently. We're not intending to engage them. We want to overwhelm them with our numbers. If they attack us, that is not out of the realm of possibilities of what they do. Okay, then why go? I really don't understand what the point of showing up to counter protest is. Maybe I'm being unfair. I mean, no, I think you're looking at it pretty soberly. I guess maybe they feel like they have a responsibility to stand up to these fascists wherever they show up, whatever it costs, and just make sure that you actually add up those costs, though. Make sure you think this through.
Yeah, think it through. And we had our opportunity to stand up to Trump, and that happened on Election Day. And the American people have spoken. So I just keep enjoying where we're at this point, where we know that he'll be out of office in January, and we can, start holding Biden accountable, which I'm looking forward to. But yeah, so that's what's happening over the weekend. Anyone who's planning on going, please stay safe. Please do not engage with anyone on the right. It's just not worth it. So Ben, you have a story to share with us.
Yeah, so Senate Republicans are outright telling Joe Biden that he better not even think of bringing on Elizabeth Warren, Susan Rice, or Bernie Sanders. Now, to me, this is the same game that Republicans play all the time. It's the same game that Lucy plays on Charlie Brown, saying that basically if you try this time, Charlie Brown, Joe Biden, we will actually give you bipartisanship. We'll let you kick the football. But as we all know, that never, ever happens. Let me read a few quotes from thehill.com as they cover the story. Senate Republicans are warning that President-elect Joe Biden would spark a fight if he were to nominate Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Bernie Sanders of Vermont, or former National Security Advisor Susan Rice to his cabinet. They went on to say, Republicans are already seeking leverage by saying Biden would be better off picking centrists such as Senators Chris Coons of Delaware or Doug Jones of Alabama, okay, for his cabinet rather than the progressive stars Warren and Sanders. And finally, TheHill.com said GOP lawmakers declined to speak publicly about their expected opposition to Warren and Sanders, who were both their colleagues, but privately, they're warning that tapping a senator with outspoken liberal views to head the Treasury Department or Labor Department would spark a fight. So, Anna, my question is, do you think Democrats actually believe this time, that they're going to actually get some bipartisanship? Because the threat sounds like they're telling Democrats that if you agree to not hire any of these super scary socialists, like terrifying people like Elizabeth Warren, then we agree that we will work with you on other picks. Do you think Democrats believe it, or should they believe it?
No, of course they shouldn't believe them. I mean, look, I think that Biden ran on this message of decency and the importance of bipartisanship because that was really the only message that he could run on. Like, what was he going to do? Run on a message of economic equality? No, I mean, he told his donors that nothing will fundamentally change under his leadership. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Yeah. Look, we had a lengthy discussion on this show this week about whether we would prefer Bernie Sanders within Biden's cabinet, or if it's better for him to remain in the Senate. And I think that it's honestly better for Bernie to remain in the Senate. I think that, the Senate as part of Congress is supposed to be part of the system of checks and balances. And I just worry that, if he's baked into the Biden administration, he's not going to have as much sway and influence as people think. However, if he's the head of various Senate committees, especially committees that have to do with our economic situation, I think that he has much more sway in that regard. I think that we need to be realistic about what a Biden presidency is going to look like. A Biden presidency is going to stop the bleeding for a little while. But I don't think that the left is going to accomplish some of the lofty policy goals that we have. I think that we need to be better at organizing and find a way to gather enough power, accumulate enough power to actually have some influence moving forward.
Right, and that's the thing for me. Is like Joe Biden keeps trying to kick this football of bipartisanship. It's like he has this fetish for bipartisanship with Republicans, and Republicans know that, and they know that that's his weakness, and so they're going to keep playing around in bad faith. Versus over here on our side, we're legitimately trying to implement policies that are going to let our children live in a habitable global, the world, the planet. We're trying to save the future for our children, and they look at us as if like we're the problem. So I'm wondering if there's ever going to be a time, or should we just completely forget about working with these people because they're more interested in working with Republicans?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the left just needs to have a multi-pronged approach. So I know that there are some people out there, so-called left-wing pundits that have like a vested interest in downplaying the importance of electoral wins involving progressives. No, that's important. And what I mean by a multi-pronged approach is we need organizing, meaning organizing among workers. But if we can win electorally, we should win electorally. That is part of this equation in accumulating power. And when I see people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, AOC, pretty soon Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, I refuse to minimize those wins.
Absolutely.
You don't get what you want by just snapping your fingers. It doesn't happen that quickly. We're not going to successfully create a third party. It's just not going to happen. And so we need to get crafty and figure out how to accumulate power under the system that we're functioning under right now. And it can be done. The right wing did it. There's a playbook. They're way more organized and they understand what power means. And honestly, there's this young electorate that's hungry for leftist policies. And so it's really the future of the Democratic Party, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I love having these discussions. So we'll talk more about this type of stuff in the post game today. We have other awesome stories, including what are Donald Trump's children saying? Apparently there's a bit of a disagreement as to whether or not Trump should concede. Also, Justice Alito has some thoughts on liberties, religious liberties in this country. I can't wait to hear more on that. And it's gonna be fantastic. So don't miss it. Become a member by going to tyt.com/join. And Ben, for our live audience, where can everyone find your work?
They can find me on YouTube at The Benjamin Dixon Show. Go over there and like, share, and subscribe. And you can always hear me make some noise on Twitter at Benjamin P. Dixon on Twitter.
Love it. All right, everyone. If you're a member, we'll see you in the post game.